What's up, everyone? Now that we've looked at how to write effective themes, counter melodies, and ostinatos, it's time to start looking at how we can structure these into effective compositions. So this topic is going to be track structure. And to give an example of this, I have taken one of the themes from the melodies that we wrote, and I've kind of created a rough structure to show you some of the points I want to make. So hopefully you're going to leave this lecture having a bit of a clearer picture on how you can structure a composition based on a single theme and get some ideas for how to, make them grow and evolve in an effective way. So something I recommend reading first is the issue of contrast and growth that is in the early lecture on this chapter, because that's going to help you make more sense out of this. But this is going to be a video on the topic of AAA themes, or tracks that basically are built on one theme that just builds and grows, like Time by Hans Zimmer, for example. So let's listen to this theme that we got. So that's the basic theme, right? That's the chords and the melody, nothing more. And again, I don't want you to worry too much about the actual orchestration. I just have my sketch tracks here, which is a different topic. It's something I'm going to be covering on a different occasion. This is just set up to give you a better idea of what I'm doing is actually doing to the track, because it's kind of hard to imagine all of these things if I'm only working with the piano. So I've kind of made, these quick little sketches to give you a better idea of what these principles are going to do to your piece of music. So this is our theme with chords and melody, just really roughly recorded. So when I have this theme, I need to think about, okay, how do I take this from a beginning through a development and then into some kind of climax? Because you need to take the listener on some kind of journey. It needs to start somewhere and end somewhere different. And to make sure people don't get super bored, it needs to grow and evolve through the whole piece. And since we only have one theme, the main ways of doing this is through arrangement, dynamic, and basically the instrumentations. So I've been talking about the concepts of contrast and growth. In this case, it's mostly going to be about growth, because we're not going to have any contrasting themes or things like that, at least not so far. So everything is going to be about making it grow and evolve. And the ways we can do that is through the two concepts of complexity and power, or energy. And since we only have a melody and chords here, we have quite a lot to grow on in terms of the complexity. So what I would probably do for the next section is to introduce the counter melody, which you see I've done here in just the horns. And the counter melody, let me just play that, and the melody together sounds like this. And so on. It's a quite standard counter melody based on the principles we've been looking at before. When the melody is resting, the counter melody is moving, and the other way around. Sometimes they're kind of, playing harmonies to each other. Other times the melody is resting and the counter melody is, playing a different movement to that, and so on. I'm not being overthinking this counter melody too much. I just played something, and cause what's important here is more the issues of growth. So one way to make your track grow is to introduce a new element, and you can't just introduce anything. That's why I like to start by writing kind of your toolkit for your composition, which is melody, counter melody, the chords, and maybe an ostinato. So when you have these things, it's going to be almost like filling out like crossword puzzle or something, because you have all these elements that are building blocks that you can use to build and develop your composition. So in this case, I'll probably, start out like quite simple with only the melody and the chords. And then in the next section, I will, of course, increase the instrumentations. Here I've like taken a melody and just like put it an octave above. So we have double the melody to just make each individual element grow, but also adding more complexity. So we have both more complexity and power. There's also more power by adding in the horns as well, because it's going to add to, the energy of the section. So I'm increasing the instrumentation, but also increasing the complexity. Also, what I've been doing is adding in this little ostinato that I just recorded in the piano and some flutes. And this is also really rough, by the way, but it sounds like this. So all of a sudden we have the ostinato that's playing these fast evolving textures, as well as the horn counter melody. So now the theme is growing in both complexity and power. And this is a way to, keep it interesting and also make it grow in a very steady, predictable way. Okay, so now we've like figured out a way to make things bigger. This is the basics of what you should do. You just need to introduce new elements as you progress through the piece, and also increase the dynamics of what's already playing. So each instrument can play louder, or you can add more instruments, doubling the exact thing the other instruments are playing. And this is something I'm going to get back to in the orchestration chapter, but I want you to remember these things. Make it more complex, or make it louder, or both. But, there's a big but here. You will reach a limit where you cannot really go that much louder without things being, a bit weird or almost like over dramatic. So what you would do then is to go down, like, kind of just reset the energy. Maybe have a little break here after this big section before you introduce something that's even bigger, because that's going to increase the impact of what's coming next. But again, that's something we're going to explore in the other type of themes that we're going to discuss, the AABA themes. But, what we can do to make this theme grow even more is to increase the dynamic range of the whole piece. So instead of starting at this point, which is, fairly complex, there's a lot of harmonies, a lot of melody and stuff going on, and it is a whole string section playing. So we can definitely start in a soft place, a more quiet place. So what we could do is to simply, grab a piano and a pad and just make the most minimal version of this theme we can. So maybe that would be something like this. Just something like that over a sustained pad. And what I've used here is the piano playing the same theme. Let me just see so you can see it a bit more clearly. The melody, which I can the basic melody just with chords in the piano. So simple, minimal, soft piano arrangement. And I've just added some of my atmospheric textures that's in the sample pack included in this course, just under it to give it space and make it a little bit more lush and interesting. So now, instead of going louder, we've kind of, made it start quieter. And this is going to increase the dynamic range of the whole piece. Because suddenly this is going to sound bigger because the listener has been accustomed to this dynamic. So suddenly the full orchestral passage is going to be even more powerful. And this is the power of dynamics and contrasts. So let me just play that from the beginning so you can see exactly what I mean. Let's see where it is here. we go. Suddenly we have a finished composition. So, I just want to note that some of you might have realized I kind of changed the composition a little bit at the end, create a little tail that just extended and ended on a final note that finished the composition. But that's just an optional little choice I did to, make it feel a bit more resolved. What you optionally could do is to go even bigger, now introduce choirs, percussion, the whole shebang, and again, then the same principles apply. And you could also introduce, maybe more ostinatos that kind of fill out this, because this is very light and fluffy. Maybe you introduce, a guitar ostinato, like in Hans Zimmer's Time. Maybe you introduce, a synth bass that's really fat. Maybe you have massive choirs following the harmony. Maybe, the sky's the limit here. But my point is, if you wanted to continue from here, have to make sure that, two things happen. You need to grow in complexity or power. And how you do that is up to you. It's just like, as long as you do that, the track is going to, remain interesting. And if you fail to do that, the track is kind of going to fall flat and that next section is going to feel redundant. So before you add any more sections to your piece, make sure that it actually serves some kind of purpose. Because you want to make the final part of the piece to feel like it's essential. It has to be there. That's where you're trying to arrive. So all these are ways that you can do that. And I've showed you how you can make something bigger based on our main theme, but also how you can make these sections sound louder by adding something that's even softer in the beginning. And also bear in mind that this mock-up is as rough as it gets. You can hear there's like a bit choppiness and, it's just played in really fast. And that's just how I do these things, just because this is about trying to make it easier to imagine what it's going to sound like and make the right composition choices. I'm not going to spend too much time on the actual mock-up here because it's only a sketch. But it does serve the purpose of kind of giving me an image of what it might sound like and what elements I need to introduce where to keep it interesting. So that's my tips when it comes to creating AAA themes. I hope that's helpful and see you guys in the other video where we're going to discuss more contrasting themes. I'll see you there.